The more things change, the more they stay the same. Welcome to the Haters Guide to F1 2026 on Motorsport 101. Oh, drama, gentlemen. We're all here for the drama. Welcome to episode 641 of M101. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Dre Harrison. Glad you could join us. And this is the big one. The main event of season preview season, the big one, the 2026 Formula One season preview. And this is a big one. We've got a lot to get through on this show. So I'm going to skip a lot of the foreplay here on this one. I'm just going to introduce the guys. We'll do the social media wrap up at the end of the show because we got so much to talk about to lay across the face of the season. So joining me as per, Mr. Cameron Buckley. Hello, Cam.
Hello, everyone. If you are watching in the audience, you'll notice that I have no Honda gear on. This is for a very good reason.
The man's hiding in shame. He's hiding behind Godzilla instead.
I'm staying for most weekdays with Red Bull after the divorce.
He gets evenings and weekends.
Christian and Helmet won't let me see the kids.
Oh, well, it's a good thing they lost all the custody anyway, because they gone.
It's a new era in Milton Keynes, and we'll inevitably talk about that later on in the show. Also joining me is Mr. Rory James O'Connell. How's it going, sir?
That's not all that's different. We've got new teams. We've got a new driver. We've got returning drivers. We've got so much different with these cars, and we're going to talk about all that shortly.
Indeed, it is a hugely heaped bill. 11 teams to get through. We've not said that about a Formula One preview ever on this show. Not in that history, anyway. What was the last time we had 11 teams in F1? What was it? 2012? End of the
2014.
14, the end of the Mana Mauritia era. Oh, geez.
Well, not just them, but also your crowd-funded F1 team, Caterham.
Oh,
I'm not related.
Finbar, God bless his heart.
Team Lotus, no relation. No relation to that one either.
That's still one of the all-time fun, because the thing is, right, you never normally ever give a shit about team principal press conferences, but we all tuned in for that one out of curiosity. And that was like watching a deer. It was like watching Bambi seeing the headlights from the van approaching. It was murder. Oh dear. Well, what can I say? But yeah, so much to get through. I'm gonna just cut the bullshit right now. Right after this, we're gonna talk our Formula One 2026 season preview. I also love in the chat, we've got Jason saying, congrats to Rookie of the Year, Arvid Lindblad, by default, because he's the only one we've got as it stands in this field.
Yeah, you never know. Somebody could get hurt, heaven forbid. Somebody could quit mid-season, get replaced. Many possibilities are here.
That's usually common. You normally get one over the course of a year in F1 these days, but we'll see how the year plays out. You never know these days. Right. Let's get the obvious out of the way, because we normally do the new stuff first. It goes into a new regulation year. And, well, let's pretend for a minute that RJ O'Connell is Drew Carey. And here's your brand new car! Because we have a brand new car. And there's a lot going on here. So I'll quickly try and break down the technical side of what's going on here. So, for those who don't know, the new 2026 car, because after all, every pod is somebody's first, it's 20 centimeters shorter and 10 centimeters narrower, so a little bit smaller than the previous turbo hybrid generation that we had. Also, a fair bit lighter. Well, at least that's the aim anyway. 30 kilos off the top, 768 kgs rather than the 798 that we used to have. Plus or minus 5, depending on if it's a heat-controlled race, and the ice packs may have to come into play. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. The MGU-H is gone from the previous spec of turbo hybrids. They've been scrapped due to, quote, lack of road relevance, whatever that means in FIA language. right now we've got a brand new power unit that's in there, actually slightly heavier than the previous spec that came before it. But the major difference is the deployment. The ICE, the internal combustion engine, and the electric motors are now supplying power 50-50 in terms of ratioed output, as opposed to, I think it was about 20-80, 25-75 on the old spec.
2080.
Yeah.
Split previously.
It's now about 55-45. Still about the same power, but maybe slightly more, around 1,000 horsepower. But roughly about the same as what they were beforehand, but with more electric, probably slightly higher top-end speeds when at full power. We'll have to see again. There's reasons for this we'll get to very, very shortly. As a result of this, we're also expecting roughly double the level of regen to come out of these power units to try and compensate for that extra deployment from the electric side of the power unit. Front and rear wings have been greatly simplified. All the fancy end plates and what have you, they're mostly gone. There's room for development on those in the future, but also they're now active. DRS is gone, and the front and rear wings
Well, when you say gone, really what we mean is the whole car is DRS.
Yeah, like it's an evolution, as the fancy intro said last week. They're now active. Wings will switch between corner mode and straight mode. What did you call me? Where basically now they will on certain designated parts of the track, they will now drop open, which reduces drag, reduces downforce, and of course increases top-end speed.
And you don't have to be within a set distance of the car in front of you to use it. It's anywhere in these designated zones, you can turn on straight line mode.
Well, and it's not just that as well. The biggest thing with the DRS wings, if you had one of those open, as Jack Doohan found very spectacularly at Suzuka in turn one, well, you had all the front downforce and none of the rear. Now you can actually run with, some additional time with those wings open, and it's not just going to spin you around.
Indeed. As Raptor says in the chat, F1 inclusivity, gay is okay, apparently, depending on who you ask. But yes, it wouldn't be like Jack Doohan to make a mistake at somewhere around Suzuka circuit now, would it?
He didn't even get to Degner one.
Anyway, there's also new power unit deployment modes. You now have overtake mode, which is a bit more like the conventional DRS we know and love. If you're within a second of the car in front of you, you now get access to overtake mode. It's basically maximum power from the power unit at top end speed. So I think it's going to be something like over 180 miles an hour or something like that. A little bit of extra power at the top of the power band, shall we say, for extra power, extra oomph to try and overtake another car on a couple of the longer straights we go to, a bit like conventional DRS, but instead of it being aero, it's more power instead. This goes alongside what we call boost mode, which is what we would usually call ERS, essentially, where drivers will manually control their battery, and that's going to be used to attack and defend for extra power across the course of a conventional lap. That's no matter where you are on track, as opposed to overtake mode, which is going to be, again, your DRS zones we had in previous eras of Formula One. And, of course, there'll also be recharge mode, where cars will try and, obviously, regen as much as they can to try and save battery power where they can. There's going to be a big emphasis on battery management in this era of Formula One, and how to deploy it when and where, and how good engines are at regenning and how good they're going to be at deploying said energy. It's going to be a huge part of what makes this formula this year. Flat floors are back. Ground effect tunnels are dead. The ground effect era, as we know it, is done. Lewis Hamilton is currently doing backflips like I show speed as we speak. So they are gone. Ground effect tunnels are gone. Minimum ride heights will be raised across the board. So none of that porpoising we've seen like we got in the previous era of cars.
Yeah. And much bigger diffusers than last time we had flat floors.
Much bigger diffusers, meaning less downforce overall. The smart guys reckon maybe about 25% less downforce under normal circumstances.
Not just that as well. Something that we kind of miss with the wings as well. Outwashing front wings are about as banned as you can get them, because they narrowed them to in between the span of the front wheels.
Indeed. Cars will run on 100% sustainable fuels for the first time ever in this sport. Look, they're not really sustainable fuels because of what you need to dig them up and harness and control them and extract them, but it sounds great on a marketing copy, so we're going to call it that. It's not a real thing. I've had friend of the show, Hazel Southall, lecture me on this many a time that they're not really sustainable. But, you know, it sounds nice on a press release, but cars are going to be running on that for the first time ever this year, and an important safety move. The survival cell in general has been strengthened. I think it's about 28% stronger than what it was previously, as well as the roll hoop, a vital part of the overhead of the car, as a direct response to the horror crash that was Zhou Guanyu at Silverstone a couple of years ago, where he was upside down for far too long, quite frankly.
Now aura farming at Cadillac Formula One team.
Yes,
I guess.
As a simulator and development driver, yes, Zhou Guanyu's over there, but yes, his crash at Silverstone from a few years ago was big inspiration for the FIA strengthening the roll hoop on top of the car to avoid that collapsing if the car happens to be upside down for whatever reason. So that's the big stuff for car changes. How we actually see it in action, we'll find out next week. By the time we get to next week's show and how it actually plays out in real time. There's big hopes that this is going to make following cars easier, makes overtaking still possible without necessarily needing a huge amount of DRS to be able to do so, and just generally having a more raceable formula. Whether that actually works or not, the drivers don't seem all that optimistic about it, to be honest, but we'll have to wait and see.
No, because we reverted in many ways back to the cars that also still couldn't race from 2021 and back. But hey, at least we'll be able to race in the rain, maybe, almost, kinda.
It's a start. It's a start. We've got to start somewhere.
Do we know if we're going to test that theory in Melbourne yet? How's the weather looking there?
Looking sunny. It's looking like we're going to get a fully dry weekend. So,
all right, we'll have to test that later. That brings us to the calendar. As it is currently constructed, this weekend, March 8th, we're going to Melbourne, Albert Park, for the Australian Grand Prix to open up the season. The following week, we take a short trip over to China, Shanghai Circuit for the Chinese Grand Prix. That's round 2. Then we have 2 weeks off, March 29th, at Suzuka Circuit for the Japanese Grand Prix. Now, as currently constructed, round 4 of the Formula One World Championship is the Bahrain Grand Prix at the Sakir Circuit on April 12th, followed by the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix at the Jeddah Street Circuit on April 19th. Put a pin in that.
Now, if you have been under a rock for the past week, there's a bit of instability in the region.
Yeah, the United States and Israel has conducted military strikes in Iran. That's put the Bahrain Grand Prix and possibly more events in that region of the world in critical jeopardy. Because we know there is a lot more important shit going on in the world right now. The World Endurance Championship has already had to postpone its season opener. Qatar is in indefinite limbo. Their season going to start in April in Imola. And we are kind of expecting, although it's not been confirmed, that there will be significant delays to Bahrain, potentially Saudi Arabia. We're going to have to wait and see, but I do not see I do not see the Bahrain Grand Prix happening as constructed.
Not on current evidence, no.
For what it's worth, for you two-wheeled fans out there, MGSE CEO Camilo Ezapelta said today with Spanish media that he expects that the Qatar Grand Prix, the MotoGP version on April 12th, the exact same day that Bahrain's Formula One race is going on, will also likely be at best postponed. The problem is there's not really a lot of nice places to put it left on that MotoGP calendar, especially if it's the back end is completely rammed. You'd have to have a quintuple header to fit it in anywhere else, which is something that the teams explicitly do not want. So no official word yet, but we expect the Qatar Grand Prix for MotoGP to be cancelled imminently, and if it is cancelled, it will not be replaced, and that's what MGSC has said. They'll just run 21 races for the year instead. For those who don't know, TV contracts over that side of the world. As long as they get 20 Grand Prix, they can afford to lose a couple and not have it hurt the TV packet. So that's a quick clarification and update for you on that. That's as much as we know as of March 4th as we record this podcast. We'll have to wait and see in future announcements.
Yeah, it's always an evolving situation. Right, back to the calendar. Round 6 as it currently is. We go to the Miami Dolphins Factory of Sadness for the Miami Grand Prix on May the 3rd. Then we take 3 weeks off and go to the Canadian Grand Prix at Montreal on May 24th. Then 2 weeks later, all the way out in June, is the Monaco Grand Prix. That feels wrong. And then the following week, it's the Spanish Grand Prix at Circuit Barcelona, Catalunya. This will be the last regular Formula One race at Barcelona, Catalunya. Put a pin in that. We'll get to that later in the calendar. We go to the Red Bull Ring in Austria for the Austrian Grand Prix on June 28th. Then the big one, the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, July 5th, followed by last regular Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps on July 19th. And then we conclude the first half of the season with the Hungarian Grand Prix in Budapest on July 26th. Then we have 4 weeks off for the summer break, and then we get right back at it with the last Dutch Grand Prix as we know it at Zandvoort on August 23rd, followed 2 weeks later by the Italian Grand Prix and Monza, and then a new venue and a new round, the Madrid Street Circuit on September 13th. They've got that place ready to go for the race in September, right?
It's still
on September 26th, we go to Baku Street Circuit for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Then a couple weeks later, on October 11th, it's the Singapore Grand Prix at the Marina Bay Street Circuit. We have the United States Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas on October 25th. Then on November 1st, it's the Mexico City Grand Prix at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, followed by the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, the Brazilian Grand Prix at Interlagos on November 8th. Las Vegas GP now on November 21st. And then we wrap up the season with the Qatar Grand Prix on November 29th and the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix on December 6th.
24 rounds. And for those who have not been paying attention, 6 races in the final 7 weeks to wrap it up. That is a gauntlet to close out the year. It's the only 2 triple headers we've got on the calendar this year, but they're both right at the end of the year. So that's going to be interesting. As RJ alluded to as well, the Catalunya round is now going to be a rotational race alongside the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. Stefano Domenicali apparently has always been a big fan of Barcelona. He didn't ever really want to get rid of it per se, but that's now going to be the first proper rotational slot on the calendar from 2027 onwards, because everybody's adamant, and I've stood by it, and to be fair, the team's holding up their end of the deal here. They don't want more than 24 rounds, so this is the compromise. There's going to be rotational slots in there now, and as a result, Spa's now only going to be a biannual race going forward alongside Catalunya. Also, a couple of interesting things. Canada is now going to be a direct clash with the Indy 500.
Good luck with that.
They will both be running at the same time at certain points. Not the full race, but I think there's going to be some crossover there. F1 trying to compete with what was the most watched motorsport race in America last year. Good luck.
Well, any odds they can take off the 500, they will look at as a win.
No kidding, because they got 7.2 million last year. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. As RJ alluded to as well, last Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort this year. It is also a sprint weekend. There's a big swan song to the region before it goes away. No increase on the amount of sprints yet. There's rumblings it might be 12 next year, but it's still 6 for now. The 6 this year will be China, Miami, Canada, Britain, the Netherlands, and Singapore will be the 6
Who the hell
this
asked
year.
for a sprint race at Singapore?
Who? And
Who are these
Zandvoort.
people?
Like, absolute sickos. All of them.
Zandvoort could
Nobody
be fun. If we
asked.
get a rainy Zandvoort, that could be really fun. Singapore, that just sounds like torture. And I like that.
So, given up trying to understand like the rhyme or reason of how they select these sprint rounds, I just feel like, okay, they're procedurally generated at intervals throughout the calendar. That's my guess.
Which is weird because all of them are in the first like 3 quarters of the year, because traditionally Brazil's always been a sprint weekend, and that's like the one weekend when we're all kind of okay with it because Brazil's just good. So it's like sprints of Brazil, yeah, that's fine. We can tolerate this. Everybody else, nah, shit. So you know, I don't get it. I think they're very bizarre choices for sprints. China, one of the longest tracks we go to. Singapore, the slowest track we go to. Britain's okay. I don't mind Canada. I think Canada's a good track, so I'm kind of fine with that as a sprint. But who asked for Zandvoort and Singapore? Jesus, who took Brazil off the list? Like,
because that sprint was fucking berserk last year.
Ridiculous.
Other changes we've got, just like other stick and ball sports or just ball sports that operate on a salary cap, Formula One's cost cap has increased from 135 million US dollars to 215 million US dollars. And Dre, tell us what that covers.
Yeah, basically, this is partly to cover just basically the ongoing rise of inflation in the global economy. That's a lot, so we've got to add a little bit more to cover that rise of inflation. But now this cap basically covers everything. Pretty much all the big stuff is now all under one big roof. The only stuff now that isn't a part of the cost cap is, and I quote, driver salaries, your 3 highest paid non-driving staff. Well done, Aston Martin, if you're not having to cover Adrian Newey's salary. More on them shortly. Travel and marketing costs, property and legal fees, parental sick pay, and any staff bonuses. So those are the only things that are now exempt from the cost cap. Everything else is now included under the one $215 million a year figure. Although I must admit, seeing that number at 215 million is quite eye-opening, even though we knew they were spending a hell of a lot more like 15, 20 years ago. But that is basically a 75% increase.
Look at how much the cap goes up. It had gone up in the NFL since in that same period of time.
Yeah, the NFL salary cap, for what it's worth, crossed 300 million for the first time this year. 300 on 32 different teams. Scary money. But a good point from RJ's included here as well. Apparently the development, now partially unfrozen, will be graded per every quarter of a season, every 6 races, and subject to concessions if beyond a certain percentage behind the benchmark. So, in other words, Otmar Zafnauer got his wish from all those years ago. We do have a catch-up mechanic.
That's new. Van Amersfoort Racing CEO Otmar Zafnauer, by the way, just confirmed overnight. The selfies are going to be immaculate. We now have an out-of-competition stewards panel in place to speed up the right-to-review process.
If Ahmed Ben Sulayem hasn't fired them between now and sometime in June.
What's the over-under?
Also, under. Give me the under. But that old Otmar thing, I gotta say, I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to get some consortium folks together, and that might be a possible 12th F1 team entry. You heard it here first. I don't think it's going to happen, but long story short, once upon a time when I was working for the Motorsport Network, I was a producer of the little podcast called James Allen on F1. Our most ever listened to episode was the one with Otmar on it. And Otmar broke a world exclusive that he was trying to get on the grid of a 12th team.
I am certainly personally going to be thrilled to see Palanga F1 take the streets.
It's just the thought. That's all I'm saying. If I wouldn't see Otmar run an F2 team unless there was a grander plan.
Right.
But because
that's how all these things start, that's, how long have we had the machinations of high tech stepping up to Formula One with Dmitry Mazepin's money.
Red Bull was effectively Christian Horner's Arden F1 team for a very long time.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a long-term plan to turn VAR into an F1 team one day, because I don't think Otmar would have joined on that kind of project if that wasn't the vision. Just the thought. Listen to me now. Believe me later on.
And I know how much a lot of the people listening to the show love VAR, especially as it applies to the Premier League.
Same thought.
Right. But that's going to be like further out in the road. We got to talk about the 2026 season. And normally we review these teams in reverse order of last year's championship. But as Ray alluded to, I have made an executive decision on behalf of everybody here at Motorsport 101, because we all know that a lot of you just love going on the freeway, right? You see a big car crash on the other side of the freeway, and you just can't help but slow your vehicle down a whole lot just to get a good long look at the carnage. So yes, we're starting with Aston Martin Formula One team consisting of two-time world champion Fernando Alonso and 10th year Formula One veteran Lance Stroll, who were 10th and 16th in the Drivers' Championship respectively. And I'm going to be honest, fellas, if they get to that point or even close to this by about the middle point of the season, it will be a miracle of miracles.
Let's put it to you this way. It's a lot like a certain wrestling legend Phil Brooks once said on NXT commentary. That's the thing about car crashes. They're wonderful and hilarious as long as you're not the one in it.
Yes, is it good when our set list here that we draw up for these just has LOL dash no really LOL.
Is it good when Dre's written guide is like, oh, wait, you're serious? Well, I suppose we'll get into it.
Yes. Aston Martin, Aramco Formula One team, are now a works team. They carry the new Honda power units from a Honda team that is rejigged and a bit depleted from their previous iteration, because some of those people were absorbed into RBPT. Some of those people, more of those people, were redeployed around into Honda Greater, into the mothership.
IndyCar, HRC for MotoGP, etc.
Yeah, a lot of them also onto the zero carbon, like their zero emissions programs, because they're doing a big push there. That happened. They also signed some guy named Adrian last year. Whoever that is.
Adrian Newey.
Adrian Newey. Now, what we know on the timeline of this is that they got their car in the wind tunnel about 4 months after everyone else. And it kind of looks that way now, doesn't it? Because late assembly of the project, late revisions to both chassis and power unit to fit together, firings of the liaison between Honda and Aston Martin, that being Andy Cowell. And what we've got, you put all this into the pot, and what you get is the soup that was initially made in Ratatouille before Remy fixed it, where just one sip and you're ready to hurl.
Yeah, this has been a hot mess. In fact, to jump in off the back of Cam talking about it, the Andy Cowell news dropped about an hour before their car was launched on a live stream that broke down twice from what was a pre-recorded event.
That is pretty representative. Now, note, their car was launched after it was actually put on track. We saw it unpainted on the second to last day in Barcelona. They didn't even have time to paint the car, such was how late this all came together. And let's summarize it like this. Honda repeated 2017. Remember 2017, everybody? Yes, the car and engine and gearbox are hitting some kind of harmonic resonance that is doing two things. It is blowing the energy store for the power unit apart, and it's blowing the gearboxes apart.
The gearbox that was designed by who, Cameron?
Aston Martin in-house for the first time. Team Silverstone's first in-house gearbox since 2008.
It's going well.
It sucks. It sucks, man.
And I need to point out as well, Aston didn't roll up till that first shakedown until day 4.
We saw no sight nor sound of them. Because everything, I mean, let's call this what it is. They are a team 4 months behind schedule, and they are finding things between car, power unit, gearbox, and ancillaries that other teams will have found 4 months ago. They did not get this car. They more or less threw away all previous work and started over when Adrian's gardening leave ended. And
that was basically March last year.
At the start of March last year. Everyone else had a car in the wind tunnel and on the chassis dyno the minute the development restriction lifted.
Yeah. It's been horrible. Their Bahrain test was infamously shit. They only did about 330 laps across the entirety of the 2 public tests in Bahrain, and it was headlined by an awful day 6, the last day of public testing, where Big Honda had to put out a statement essentially saying, we have to investigate part of our power units. We have so few spare parts that we're only going to have the car in limited capacities, and they called it a day after lunch.
How many laps?
Having only ran 7.
Oh, you highballed it.
7.
It was 6.
Oh, wow. Done. I was 1 out. That's a 14% margin of error. Yeah, 6.
What else did we have? Stroll went off into a gravel trap and was stuck in 47th gear, which is interesting because
60th,
one gearboxes are only 8 gears. Wow, we even lowballed that.
Yeah, it was 60 gears, which I'm pretty sure is how many Top Gear burst into.
They did not manage more than 26 laps across a single stint at any point in testing. The Barcelona shakedown behind closed doors, the Bahrain tests, they can't safely rev their car past 11,000.
That's no longer true. It was true for the first test.
Yeah.
Small wins.
Usually your rev limit is a bit higher, but it's really bad when there is one of these aggregator accounts that says, well, Aston Martin might just start and park at Melbourne, and then big boy publications report the same story, that they might just do a few laps and park up because they don't have enough parts.
Simply put, Honda's going to debut some new parts on the battery system during that first weekend in Melbourne, but they also reckon their participation across the weekend will hinge on those parts and whether they work or not. I suspect someone at Aston told the big boy journos to try and take some of the heat off the story, because I think it was Autosport that was the first to report it earlier in the week, and they were like, no, it's not like that. It's, we're going to debut some new shit and see if that works, basically. But the reality of the situation is, an Aston Martin has not done a stint longer than 26 laps since it debuted.
And, well, you ask, how does this Adrian Newey car, designed by Adrian Newey and helped with by legend Adrian Newey, as they kept posting for a week straight during the first test, how does it look out on track? Fuck awful.
Is the figure that Lance Stroll said that at that
4.5 seconds?
8 seconds it was 4.5 seconds at their worst. And look, we know it's Lance Stroll, easy punching bag, yada, yada, yada.
Somehow I don't think he's fibbing.
I tend to trust him. I don't think he's fibbing here. And if it's going to be bad for him, Lord knows it's only going to be even worse for Fernando Alonso, who is living a recurring nightmare.
There's only one Spaniard on this planet who is allowed to get good Honda engines, and he doesn't drive in Formula One.
Yeah, it's funny because Fernando Alonso has said that this was going to be his last year in Formula One if the car was
Welcome
good.
back next year, buddy. You're here forever.
This is fantastic. I need to point out, Fernando Alonso is going to be if he makes it to July, which we assume so, he'll be the first 45-year-old F1 driver since Graham Hill back in 1973.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, he made a deal with some underworld lord for Michael Schumacher's engine to Grenade in Japan 06. He sold his soul, and he has been paying out the ass ever since.
Like, detonate Michael Schumacher's invincible engine and my life is yours.
Yes, and now he's going through. Where is he? Is he in Hades right now? Is that where he is along the Kratos timeline?
What's really sad about this is that HRC's new CEO, Koji Watanabe, I say new, he's been on the job for a while, but he wasn't there when the original GP2 engine nonsense unfolded. And Watanabe said, we want to make this work with Fernando Alonso. We don't mind working with him again. And now look what's happened. And like,
this is worse.
The Honda Power Unit is.
This is actually
this is
quantitatively worse than McLaren in 2015. That said, like, when they got the engine out of the McLaren in 2017, they got it into a car that didn't have that harmonic vibration issue. They started making progress. And they started, eventually they picked up enough steam. In 2021, they had the best power unit in the sport for most of the year. I don't think Alonso's going to wait around that long this time. Everyone needs to get their house in order here. And to that effect, like, there's something about Adrian Newey, the greatest designer F1 has ever seen. And we first saw this car, and two things came to mind. That's by far the most aggressive car on this grid. Look how little cooling there is. Look how tight the side. Oh, wait, there's no cooling.
Bold.
All we know is that look, Adrian's done this before, man. Like, he is universally and rightfully regarded as one of the best designers, but he has also pushed the envelope so far at times that
shit doesn't work.
The car just doesn't work.
And that is something.
Remember the MP418 that never raced?
We don't remember it. We never saw it until 2004 with a different name. And that is something that he always had at Red Bull, where he's always had someone to check his worst impulses at Red Bull. He's had Rob Marshall and Pierre Vaca. And until actually brand new news out of last week, Craig Skinner, who now just departed Red Bull. The RB22 is his last Red Bull. Chief designer from 2021 until this year. I'd say it went pretty well.
Yeah.
Not all good, but mostly good. But Adrian Newey is now team principal. All dissenters have been removed. I just wonder if the structure is there to actually get these problems solved. Because what has Aston Martin had been over the last 12 months, if not a meat grinder for basically any new hire that goes in?
I've always said, if you've got to give Lawrence Stroll some credit for something, he will cut the check if he thinks it will make the team better. That's about as much as you could hope out of a billionaire that owns your sports team. The money, he isn't tight as shit. I'll give Lawrence this. He will spend the money. He's desperate for this team to be a success. So much so, they literally sold the naming rights for the team last week for a clean 50 million quid. Which I wonder, is the road car business going bankrupt again?
Well, it's not like
be the first time.
It wouldn't be the second, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, or the sixth time.
Amazingly, no one's got 200 grand to buy an Aston Martin in the UK economy right now. Who'd have thunk it?
Brexit means Brexit.
No, like this is what happens with, like, this is the thing. This is the first time in 40 years in F1 Adrian Newey is running an F1 team, and he's got full accountability for what goes on. And once again, we said this in the last off-season. Between the three of us, we weren't sure if this was the right use or deployment of Adrian Newey's talent as a car designer, because I've always said that, okay, he's the best prepared F1 team principal maybe in Formula One history, but at the same time, do you want to take him away from what he does best? Because now he's going to be doing media interviews. Now he's going to be doing after dinner speaking. He's going to be doing charity gigs. He's going to be doing all the other bells and whistles that come with being an F1 team principal. Because we all know it's a much more front-facing job than when he was at Red Bull, when he was basically locked in a very fancy carbon fiber shed. So with all that in mind, plus the fact he's 66 years old, you know, like he's a very old team principal out here as well. He's openly said he's not going to be at every round in person either. He hasn't got the body to travel that kind of 9 month a year.
He didn't play it on at Red Bull either.
So with all that in mind, what is this team organizationally from top to bottom?
They don't have a CEO.
Well,
they're still missing major components running the team. And what it feels like, and like the thing that really just sunk the McLaren Honda partnership, a decade ago, it doesn't feel like a works partnership, does it? Not the way it did with Red Bull, where Red Bull and Honda pretty much opened all facilities to one another and said, whatever you need, take it. It feels much more compartmentalized right now, like it did with McLaren and Honda, and it feels like the result is the same.
Cowell was meant to be the bridge.
He's gone.
And he's already gone.
Andy Cowell, who oversaw the Mercedes power unit development in, let me see here, 2014 and earlier, all the way through every championship they've won in F1 since they re-entered.
I'm sure that wasn't that many championships.
10. It's one of the greatest.
That seems like a lot.
It's like the greatest run by an individual team in the history of the sport.
It's the greatest engine maybe in F1 history in terms of sheer outright success. But
there's some old heads with a Ford logo on their jacket that just punched air here and that.
Look, man,
we'll get to them later.
This is why we don't put all that much stock into like rumblings of paddock gossip of who's got the best power units like a year, 2 years out from when these things actually hit the road, right? And we know that there is much room for this to get better potentially. But all I'm saying is at the start of this 2026 season, it could get really bad.
Yeah. Right now, depending on those parts, well, I guess we'll wrap this up here because we do have 10 other teams to get to. It really depends on the impact of those parts. We may see our first in a very long time start and park team in F1.
Because, just for the record, you have to at least attempt to show up. That's part of the Concord Agreement, unless there's a serious mitigating reason.
Remember Australia 2015 with Manor? Because they brought the cars and brought the team and didn't have the software to fire their power units up. But because they made the attempt, they were excused.
Yes. That's Aston Martin not in a good place and no
selling it again, Dre.
Business. Well, I kind of have to. Someone has to, otherwise I burst into tears. Like Raptor's doing in our chat right now, bless his eyes. He's an Aston Martin supporter. To which I say to him, as a friend, you don't have to do this. I promise. You can simply leave. Anyway, the new boys. Cadillac, Formula One
finally
team.
Here. We're done with the nonsense. We're done with the gatekeeping. We're done with the bullshit. They're finally here, and we have a Formula One grid that feels like a full Formula One grid for the first time in over a decade.
They're currently being sued by Michael Bay, which I think is just very funny.
Not as funny as them throwing Mario Andretti's name on the car. As it feels like a little fuck you to all the anti-Andretti people.
Well, it's not like they're putting Michael Andretti's name. It's not like Michael Andretti's involved with this anymore.
Like I said in my haters guide, he was stuffed into a locker sometime around Vegas in 2024.
It was all Senna and Hackett and McLaren in 1993. Yeah. Michael Andretti in Formula One was a figment of your imagination.
I like to think that the exact second Michael Andretti turned on the TV to watch St. Petersburg is when Will Power ended up in the wall.
Rough.
More on that in our next episode. But the Cadillac Formula One team is finally here. It's Valtteri Bottas, 10-time Formula One Grand Prix winner with 246 starts, and Sergio Perez, 281 starts and 6 Formula One Grand Prix victories. If you're a first team, your team, you could not ask for a lot more experience than this.
Right.
Yeah, 527 starts between them. Arguably the most. I think it might be up there as one of the most experienced teams in F1 history, period. In terms of just sheer number of starts. Over 100 podiums between the pair of them.
Is that a dozen wins on the board, too?
16.
16 wins.
Good count. I mean, if you got double-digit F1 wins, you're no joke. In Valtteri is a very experienced veteran. It's about as good a team as you could hope for. Like with any new team, they've had some teething problems. They didn't have the smoothest run in Bahrain testing, but they got over 600 laps on the board. And from what I was told and read, some tapped hats, some doffing of the caps to Cadillac for from what their peers have said, look like a professional run outfit. They've been praised universally for being serious about this and looking like a serious team from the moment they've rolled up. The general sentiment I've been told is they're doing things the right way, which
it's
is
like
good.
It's like anybody who could have seen the initial proposal of this program knew what they were talking about.
Well, we can't get past the hatred of Michael Andretti, which I can relate to in some aspects. Beyond, I mean, that's what you'd expect out of some, like, TWG runs serious motorsport outfits elsewhere. And General Motors, after 40 years of dicking around and being in and out of motorsport and under the table, ever since they did the Corvette program at the end of the 90s, and with the exception of the first Cadillac Le Mans program, we don't talk about it, they've been nothing but serious. They have always tried to go about it the right way. They are willing to spend and hire who is necessary and bring in great talent to be successful. And that's all you can really expect out of them. This plucky little team, we say, again, under General Motors, who is a huge-ass company, they've put together a clean, reasonably well-thought-out car. They've hired 2 very experienced drivers. And first time of asking, well, at minimum, they're ahead of multiple championship-winning power unit supplier and designer at Aston Martin. So it's something.
Yeah. Look, like I said, I think the word I've used to describe Cadillac from day one has been sensible.
Mm-hmm.
They've been sensible in who they've brought in. They've had some sensible tech heads brought in. You know,
I would never support hiring Nick Chester personally. He designed the E22. I hate that man.
But they've also got Pat Simmons. They've got Adam Purvis. Their team principal is Graham Loudon, who we know worked miracles at Marussia and Manor back in his day. Like he was not the problem of that organization. The problem of that organization is that they had a budget of like $5.
Yeah, considering what Marussia and later Manor were actually able to achieve in their short time here, is kind of a minor miracle.
Multiple time point scorers
with no right to do so whatsoever.
In a team on a budget of a Freddo, a bottle of Mountain Dew, and 28 pence. The Graham Loudon knows how to run a team,
right?
And I had the privilege of being at their end of year Christmas party. There was a lot of tired people there, understandably, because they've been working very, very hard. But there was a genuine sense of optimism and excitement from the people I spoke to at that party. And they openly admitted they've got over 800 people working on this team, which is already in the upper end of what personnel you would see in F1 teams. It's easily in the upper midfield.
You would expect that out of TWG and General Motors, because this is soon will be a works outfit. Early on, they're using Ferrari power units while they get the car side of the equation going.
And I know people are skeptical about, well, are they really going to build their own power units? Do you think General Motors wants to lose a point of pride against Ford?
It's in the name, and we'll get to Ford later because their involvement has been higher at Red Bull than it was initially talked about, famously by former host of the show elsewhere on other publications. But I can only echo that. Like, they had a good test. They just got their heads down and worked at it. This shit is hard. We've seen over the years, it is unbelievably hard no matter what form of motorsport you're in, and you're in the top level, baby. There are no half measures to be done here. And it looks like, as a first effort, they aren't fast, but they're here, and they're fine.
Look,
we're not expecting them to contend for wins. Dan Towers thinks they could get 8th in the constructors.
You know? Based on the state of 2 other teams right now, what did he see?
I don't know if Dan knew something that we didn't, because we called him crazy at Christmas for that. Maybe now, given the new look at the field, it might not be quite so crazy. I think the point distribution might be the biggest issue for that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But they did over 650 laps in testing. All I would say is they've ticked the 2 biggest boxes, in my opinion. One, their car is reliable and it's working. That's a good lap count. It's not obviously what the big teams are doing, but it's still significant.
First time out.
Within 90%. I mean, first time out of the box, that's great. And going by pace, they're going to be within 107%. That's all you can ask for out of a brand new team, as far as I'm concerned.
They might not be the slowest car on the grid on potential right now due to weight issues up and down the grid.
Yeah, and that would already be a phenomenal achievement for a brand new team. That's a huge win. Like just making the grid and having a reliable, competitive car would be a big tick in the box for Cadillac. I've said before, going into this weekend, if you get both cars over the line, that's a successful weekend.
That's the beginning. That is the first step.
Yeah, and I think they've got every chance of doing that. The car looks reliable. It looks solid enough. It's not fast, but it doesn't need to be fast right now. We can work on that later. The point is, they're here, and they're here to behave. The only other secret element of this might be the Colton Herta conundrum, because he will also be racing in Europe this year. He'll be in Formula 2, representing high tech. It's a loaded top end in Formula 2 this year, but if testing with anything to go by, Herta was competitive. If he gets in the top 8 of the point standings, he will be eligible for an F1 super license. I wonder, the only question mark I have is, if Dan Taurus is truly serious about having an American on the grid, if he's your man, do they pull the trigger on him for 2027? We'll have to wait and see.
And who did they tell to sit out the last year of a purported multi-year contract between Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, through whom people are going to have the dumbest Hamilton versus Verstappen proxy debates of the season, when that's not even a priority for the team? Look, just get your points where you can. Clear the bar of 2002 Toyota, because that was the last from scratch full factory Formula One team that we had with a big budget and factory resources. And did it go well in the first year? Absolutely.
Yeah, they scored points.
Are we expecting Cadillac to contend for podiums and wins? No.
I will also say, if you do bring Colton Herta in, whatever you do, bar that man from selecting number 26. It is cursed in your organization.
Yep. Stay away from that shit. Alpine, BWT Alpine Formula One team.
Let's bring the vibes down with Alpine.
Yeah, it's not been a good time to be a fan of Alpine. For those who, again, have been living under a rock for the last couple of months, the news has been bleak in recent times. They announced a couple of weeks ago that they are leaving the World Endurance Championship at the end of the year. Their Alpine hypercar program is no more. And the famous Viri engine manufacturing department will be closed down permanently in the not too distant future.
The mayor of the town was ready to tear Renault Group CEOs to shreds over that decision.
Yeah, man. I mean,
their staff went on strike at Monza a couple of years ago. The people that are allegedly, Bruno Ferman stepped down from his role as interim team principal to try and defend the staff that he had in that plant. I'll give the Alpine lot this. They are loyal to a T.
Yeah. All of Viri will be shut down. All motorsport faculties of this company outside of Formula One will be shut down. And just as that car notched up a win as well. I personally, I don't get it, but I'm not a CEO of a big automotive company. I would spend it all on chroma flare paint and motorsport, which is why I'm probably not one.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it's just, it's a shame. And that also extends to the fact that we gained power unit manufacturers this year, but we lost one too. Mm-hmm. Alpine are no longer a factory team. They are buying in full Mercedes drivetrains, power unit and gearbox. And this is somewhat of a hard reset, where what this really is Team Enstone in the good old days of having Renault money, but pretty much everything else is independent really now.
Yeah, Alpine power units, Alpine gearboxes. Jack Doohan is gone from the organization. Alex Dunn's now, it was announced today officially that he's a part of the academy now.
Why would you trust the Alpine academy?
I don't, because he's got nowhere else to fucking go.
They built so many successful drivers for other enterprises, and of course, the race drivers that they have. They're bringing back Pierre Gasly and they're bringing back Franco Colapinto. I'm very curious. It's very interesting to see like the amount of Pierre Gasly slander on the timeline when if you scratch even a little bit beneath the surface, if you just look at surface level, this guy has been carried Alpine on his back all last season, and that was unrewarded.
The last 2 seasons of this man have been like 6th Man of the Year award contenders, where you'd never notice other than the insane double podium in Brazil 2024, which was like the 4th most insane thing that happened that race. But what is the biggest black mark against Pierre Gasly other than getting absolutely fucking creamed by probably the best driver of the modern age, in a famously tricky car?
It's broken many man over the last half decade and change, and Gasly was no exception. And there's no shame in that in hindsight, looking back on that.
And he's not the same driver that he was then. He is a much, much, much better driver.
I was going to say, like, I do my top 10 every year. He was the number 11 on my list. It pained me not to include Gasly because he had 22 points last year in an absolute shitbox of a car. Pierre Gasly might be pound for pound the best midfield driver in Formula One now because of how hard he's had to work with underperforming cars. Between him and a guy we'll mention on the next team shortly.
It's like he's the new Sergio Perez circa Sahara Force India mid-2010s.
Yeah, Gasly has been superb for the last 2 years in putting the team on his back and dragging it to decent results. He will be great. And look, I'll give Alpine this. They had a very good test. Like, that Alpine looks damn solid.
It feels precision mid. It feels like it's better than everything behind it, but worse than the top 4. That is exactly where they used to be before the chassis went off the deep end. Started 2024.
Which, given where they were, would be a huge improvement, quite frankly.
They did find a way to make Mercedes power units deeply unreliable, though. They did have a number of stoppages, and they're like, well, you can't take the Alpine out of the Alpine.
Indeed, but the car does look like a very solid midfielder. It could be battling. Look, the race reckons it should be competing for Q3 spots on debut, which would be
It feels like the kind of car that could sneak a podium if the shit hits the fan.
Look, they've done a very good job over the offseason. You can forgive my initial trepidation for trusting that any of the moves from Alpine over the last 12 months were going to pay off into something good and watchable and decent.
RJ, I would counter that.
I'm glad it seems like they're turning things around. I would counter
that with, you would hope so as well, given they are a factory, at least in budget.
They
are a customer team. They are a marketing exercise for Renault.
They are, but keep in mind, they killed 2025 more or less before the first race. They brought like one upgrade to that car, and that was it.
It was dead at
Silverstone, and there wasn't a whole lot going on before that anyway. You would hope they would produce something decent. The question then becomes, can you sustain that and keep chasing the top 4? Because, well, the power unit ain't an excuse anymore.
They are also going to... I wonder what the effective year 2.5 is going to be for Franco Colapinto.
Because it's easier to hide his struggles from last season, from when he took over, when the team all around was bad.
When they were doing team orders for 17.
That level of asinine nonsense. But we've seen Franco Colapinto in a decently tidy Williams put in some results that made you question what the hierarchy of that Williams team was in late 2024. And then around Sao Paulo, it just vanished, and it hasn't come back since. Again, it was easier to hide those struggles when the car was not good and not expected to compete. Now that it seems like the car is going to be better, at least at the start of the season, Franco really needs to get back to the form that he showed when he first showed up in the sport.
Really does.
Agreed. He needs Williams numbers when he first debuted over there, when Williams was roughly in the same kind of position, and they could get points on a good day. And Colapinto did get points on a good day in a Williams. So if he can get anywhere around that sort of ballpark, I think he'll be absolutely fine. I think, as Max says in the chat, he's a very peaky driver. And I would like a smoother curve with him, because the downsides were him in a wall. And I'd rather
somewhere in the middle is the ideal point.
If you're within 2/10 of Gasly, no one's going to complain.
That's a good year.
You know, so
it's a good year. He needs it.
That's our Alpine around.
Nipping at his heels.
And basically, if you're Alpine, your goal should be minor points. Like that,
Absolutely.
you know, and that would be a huge improvement on last year. New boys, kind of. Audi Revolut, the Audi Revolut F1 team. Welcome to the artists formerly known as Kick Sauber. Thank God Kick is dead in F1 as a presence.
Y'all can bitch all you want about that Audi livery being bland. It is better than what they had the last couple years.
No
Easy
kidding.
Go is gone, and Audi is here, finally. And I gotta say, from testing, again, we're not talking about a team that's going to be competing for podiums and wins right off the rip, but considering how hopeless some of the projections of this team looked like a while ago, this ain't bad. This is really good. This is above expectations.
They were a team that looked like they grew into the test as the 6 days went on. I have a lot of time for Jonathan Wheatley. He is one of the best in the business.
Yeah.
And he was playing down expectations from the start. And I think that was a wise thing to do, because I don't think anybody knew what the Audi power unit was going to be once they actually turned the on switch. And I think they were a little bit ropey to start off with, a couple of mechanical problems, and they looked a little ragged to start out with. But I think as the test went on, I think they grew in confidence. They were clearly opening the taps up a little bit more. By the end, they were looking like a borderline point scorer, which would be really solid for Audi first time of asking. They've got the team to do it. Like I said, Wheatley's a great team principal. Matteo Bonotto's head of the project.
Yeah.
Keep him away from the power unit.
All Bonotto has to do is delegate. All he has to do is delegate. That's fine.
I like how he put it as well. It's like, it's the longest laundry list of small fixes I've ever seen after a test. And that's a good thing. Because rather than having one massive issue like what's happening over in Sakura right now, where like Audi had a couple mechanical issues, not even so much power unit side, mainly hydraulic the first week. They then show up to the second test with what I can only describe as the Warhead's Extreme Sour side pods, where it's like a zero pod at the front and then it kicks out to a normal side pod. Really funky looking car.
I want to destroy the surface of my tongue right now with some sour.
I love me some Warheads. The blue raspberry, elite.
Yeah. Sour Patch Kids.
First they're sour, then they're sweet. That could basically describe their test.
Sour Patch Kids is child's play compared to Warheads.
It really is. You're not wrong. Sour Skittles are the brutal ones. They look good. Other than the starts where they seem to have a knock-on of having probably the biggest turbo here, that thing takes a while to spool. They are not great off the line. We'll see if they can address that via old school means like burning more fuel and such. They look good. they're like, all I can say about Audi as a like brand new, no prior progress, no prior F1 experience power unit maker, they look like they've been here for a while.
It looks like it works.
At minimum,
they're new.
You passed the test. It works. And then the second test got better and better now the car looked okay. Now with the race spec package on it, it actively looks like a solid midfielder.
Yeah, which is a great start.
They got the drivers to do it. Nico Hülkenberg, the other best driver in the midfielder. The
real sixth man of the year in F1.
Finally, a podium haver in Formula One.
Damn right.
I can't stress enough how great Nico Hülkenberg has been since coming back full time. He's had his last 3 seasons have been superb.
I never wavered. I thought it was bullshit he lost his seat. ever since he came back, he has been certified money.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. He has spearheaded both the Haas team when he came back, and he went to kick Sauber, and he literally kicked on there too. Got that podium finish at Silverstone last year.
We can go home.
It was the big reason why Kick Sauber had their best year last year since 2012, when there was a Chelsea badge on the front of the car and Kamui Kobayashi was getting standing ovations at home. They scored 70 points last year. Now, I'm not expecting them to get 70 again this year, because again, I think the way the points are going to get divvied up, I don't think that's going to be doable. But if they're knocking on the door of Q3 out the gate, then I think they're going to be very. I don't think anyone's going to complain.
The first throw of the dice for Audi.
Yeah, they'll happily take that all day long. They've got a good team. Hulkenberg's a great midfielder. Gabriel Bortoleto, again, very peaky. He was very unlucky last year to be 19th in points, given he scored 19 points, which would never normally put you that low in the table, ever. But
yeah,
again, very peaky driver. Like Austria last year, he was sensational.
When he's good, he is box office. And when he is bad, he's having some of the most violent crashes photographed on the year. That Brazil Turn 1 crash still raises the hairs at the back of my neck.
That was what 65 G's into the wall when he hit that.
Because he hit a wall, and then he hit another one after the survival cell. Already done the job once, which is never ideal. But yeah.
So what does Bortoleto need to be more of a success this season? Because my gut feeling is that am I crazy to think that Audi sees him as a Sauber hire and not an Audi hire? Like, if Audi had the resources, they could get a more proven guy to be Nico Hulkenberg's teammate, or they could get somebody else to take that seat if Bortoleto struggles again this year.
My gut tells me that he's a good guy to have in a team, and he's a good project to have in a team, because the guy did the F3, F2 double. The talent's never been under question. I think what Gabriel needs is
get the floor up.
Consistency. Get the floor up.
Needs to be,
because the thing is, right,
it doesn't have to be up here, but if the floor can be 30% higher year 2, you take that.
Cam, I wouldn't even say that. All I would say is he's had the speed from day one. If you look at the advanced metrics, he was very close to Hulkenberg in terms of raw speed.
Yeah,
like within half a tenth. All he needs to do is mitigate the errors. Mitigate the errors, and he'll be fine. The speed's already there, and you can't teach that.
The floor can't be car spread in its constituent parts across the countryside.
No.
Not when they just signed Freddie Slater as their next prospect in waiting. Right. And I don't think Audi is not going to want to let him go the way that Alpine has done for so many others.
That boy nice.
Let's be this way. For those who don't know, Freddie Slater was very unlucky not to win the very prestigious Autosport Young Driver of the Year award last year. It's a genuine, prestigious, really big-time award. Some of the greatest to ever do it has won that award, like Jenson Button in years past. He is arguably the most talented British prospect in junior racing right now. He's in F3 next year. I believe it's with Trident, which are the team to be with if you want to be in F3. He's only 17. Look out. The kid's a serious talent. If he's anywhere near decent in F3 this year, he's going to be a problem.
Also worth noting with Audi, this team is also operating in an incomplete state because, as we know, they operate out of Hinwil. You have the engine program in Germany for Audi. Their UK base is on its way, let's say.
Yes, they're building a UK base to basically get more cohesion between them, where a lot of engineers are in the UK. Exactly, so that's up and coming as well. So a lot to look forward to if you're in the Audi camp. If this is the start, then it's a damn good one.
The thing is with this, I guess I would say, and this becomes a running theme, this midfield looks like a bar fight.
It is.
Yeah. It only gets tougher from here.
And we still have, I reckon, at least one more team that will contend in that bar fight, because here comes Visa Cash App Racing Bulls.
Racing Bulls.
The controversial livery of the field, and another new lineup for them, because we know Liam Lawson is there in the number 30 car. Alongside him, as it stands, the field's only rookie, the number 41 of Arvid Lindblad, who was 6th in the Formula 2 Championship last year. The star of the Red Bull Driver Academy, as it were. He gets his first, he's the youngest British driver to ever take a seat in a Formula 1 car. He's still only 18 years old. Those remember last year, the reason why we've got the new vague 17-year-old super license exemption is because of Arvid Lindblad, not Kimi Antonelli, as people thought it might be. Turns out it was for Arvid. Red Bull's very high on this kid. We'll talk about him in a minute, but this is the first full season of a brand new rejigged Racing Bulls lineup. We know Lauren Mekes was yanked out very early on through 2025 to become Red Bull's CEO and team principal in the big boy team. Adam Permain, who did 27 years at Team Enstone, is now their team principal. Did a very solid job taking over in difficult circumstances, steered them to a really solid point. It was their best year in 4 years. And he's got another new driver to deal with, because Isaac Hadjar is gone. He's now in the senior team. We'll talk about him in about an hour's time. And instead, we have Arvid Lindblad there. So it's a new era, new management again. And this is the team for me in the midfield that I don't quite know what to make of them. Like, they look solid enough in testing. The Red Bull Ford powertrain is going to be an interesting one. Kind of a little erratic handling wise. There was a lot of a lot of ski, a lot of little lockups, a lot of minor mistakes and things like that. Nothing catastrophic, thankfully, but certainly a bit skittish.
Not the car that came out of testing last year, which looked like, wait, is this thing actually like as fast as the senior Red Bull? With all the correlation issues the initial RB21 was experiencing. None of that it feels like this year. They did make a White Bull livery look kind of mid. It's blobby. It's nowhere near as good as last year's main team or junior team White Bull.
Yeah. What do we think of the driver situation? Because you'll look at Arvid Lindblad and think he was only sits in Formula 2. This dude's been heavily rated coming out of karting into Formula 4 before he ever set foot in a Formula 2 car, let alone a Formula 1 car. He seemed like he was always destined to get up to this level. He is fast. He is fast enough that you could one day see him at the big boy Red Bull team.
It could be this year, depending on how things go. You know how Red Bull gets down. Although Helmut Marko got wood chippered in the off season. Meh. Honestly, I kind of feel meh towards the whole team. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, only to say Liam Lawson was genuinely unplayable at Red Bull last year to the point where he got demoted. The fastest we've ever seen someone get demoted. And then when he went back, he was generally pretty well handled by Isaac Hadjar.
This feels like the year where Lawson has no excuse. I feel a little bit bad for him because he was put into a situation he was clearly not ready for. Sonoda was clearly the guy that should have been moved up, and even then he wasn't great at Red Bull, but it would have made a lot more sense to move Sonoda up than Lawson, move up the guy with the 4 years of experience. Jesus, I thought that was the obvious move.
But he's tethered to Hondas, and we're going to be leaving Honda soon, so we can't tie ourselves to that, really, honestly. Like, give us Liam Lawson, like he's one of our guys, and it didn't work out like that. And I'm worried that if he doesn't perform this season, his F1 career is over, because there was never even a consideration, right, when there was suddenly a vacancy at the Red Bull second seat that they could try again with Lawson. That wasn't even rumored. Considered.
No, it feels like he's either going to stick around here or had to find
He'll be out of F1.
he'll be out of F1. That I think that makes it hard to benchmark Lindblad because Liam Lawson is a wildly inconsistent driver. On the good days, he is a very fast, very scrappy driver. On the bad days, he is a not very fast, very scrappy, sometimes, frankly speaking, a little bit silly driver.
Yeah, it's going to be I mean, you'd expect Lawson to handle a rookie Lindblad, but we're about to get a very interesting litmus test as to how big a prospect Lindblad actually was. Because I watched all of F2 last year. Lindblad at his best was exceptional.
Fast
Yeah,
as hell.
he was the youngest ever Formula 2 winner of times during 2025. He won a feature race and a sprint last year at age 17. That's never been done. And at times he was exceptionally quick. A little bit reckless when it came to racecraft and overtakes, but the speed is there.
Diamond in the rough, let's say.
Again, half the battle. If he's able to dial it down 2 notches, and to be fair, he broke the record on the final day for most laps in a day's testing. Like, so the guy's prepared to work. He had 165 laps on the last day for Racing Bull. So he's putting in the work. Let's put it to you that way.
Here as well, like perhaps the shock of testing. The initial Red Bull Ford powertrain, and yes, we can include the Ford name on it beyond just a sticker. They are making parts for it. They are helping them with dyno work and electrics. Pretty much dead reliable.
Yeah. Didn't really go wrong across the 6 days of testing for both them and the senior team. Yeah, a lot to look forward to in that essence. I think the paint is good. Whether the car handles well is, something that we kind of have to remain to be seen, but certainly one that's interesting. Now, forgive me here, I forgot to put Haas in the set list when I originally
forgot Haas.
The gritty Haas.
No, look,
let's talk about the gritty Haas for a minute. Toyota Gazoo Racing. Haas F1 team now.
Haas F1 team. Yeah.
Toyota now take the lead on the naming, even though it is really a glorified sponsorship and simulator deal. That's fine.
Can I just say, the Toyota Racing, Gazoo Racing, Toyota Gazoo Rookie Racing branding split that they did over the offseason is about the dumbest thing. I still can't wrap my hand around it because it makes no sense.
Three different
Gazoo
names
Racing is meant
for different things.
Yeah. So
that they all just did under one name before. Why?
Why? Why exactly? The whole point of Toyota Gazoo Racing was that this is supposed to be unified brand.
I digress.
Anyway, tangent aside,
Haas.
They brought back Esteban Ocon. They brought back Ollie Behrman.
They've brought back some variety of white, black, and red in carrying over from WEC sponsorship, WEC colors.
Can I just say as well, there was a bit of a clangor that dropped media-wise before preseason really got going from Io Komatsu, who's their team principal. Like, Io is quite reserved normally, but he made it abundantly clear in this offseason he was disappointed by Esteban Ocon's output last year, which I thought, ooh, that's a spicy comment.
Yeah.
To be fair, he also said, listen, that's partly our fault. We didn't quite do right by him. We needed to work together and figure this out. But he made it abundantly clear that he was disappointed. They expected more out of Ocon. And if you look at the advanced numbers between him and Behrman last year, very evenly matched, which is actually probably more of a downside if you're Ocon, because you probably shouldn't be losing out to a rookie. A very talented rookie in Ollie Behrman, do not get it twisted, but a rookie nonetheless.
Right. I mean, Haas had a very weird year last year because there was moments where they looked every bit as good as they had the previous 2 years under Hülkenberg, and races where they kind of felt like old Haas, where they just weren't really at the races. They
had big setup problems last year, especially in the first half of the year.
Like 1 week, it'll be you just lost to the gritty Haas. The next week, it'll be you just lost to gravel and the metal pipe just comes crashing down from the ceiling. But at least from testing this year, they've turned up to the start of the season with something that is pretty solid.
They put up a lot of laps. That car looks like it handles. Second most laps out of everybody. And not only that, but this feels like the beginning of an evolution of a very different Haas, where it is no longer beholden to whatever concept Ferrari pursues, because, of course, for the longest time, Haas bought pretty much everything you possibly could from the Scuderia, and the car would have to follow suit in some areas. Now with Toyota helping them on the back end, they have a little bit more freedom. That looked every bit as good as the best Haas's we've seen out of them all 3 weeks.
You know what it was? It was boring.
That's
and
the
that's a
best
good
thing your test can be.
Yeah, it was a very boring, not very newsworthy test, and that's good. They had nearly 800 laps across the testing period. Only McLaren racked up more than them over the course of the 6 days in Bahrain. And they seem to have solved their handling problems. We talked about it a little bit at the start of last year. They had big instability problems at high speed, and that was part of the reason why Ocon struggled. He couldn't handle that, having a very loose, very unstable rear of his car at high speed. Ollie Behrman was able to handle that better, and that's part of the reason why he ended up doing so well in his rookie season. Look, this is a damn good lineup. The Haas looks like a very solid all-rounder that doesn't have any major drawbacks right now. Ferrari opinion, it's been good. All testing, they've been reliable, they've racked up laps, good mileage. There's no reason why Haas can't hit the traps and be point scorers.
The big thing they need is for Ocon to perform like a 10-year veteran, and for Behrman to just take it down to about a 9.
That's the thing.
Times he gave us a 12.
Let us not forget, Ollie Behrman is very close to a race ban still.
He's got 10 penalty points, and none of them come off until the Canadian Grand Prix.
There is an extremely good chance he gets banned for a race, and a fair majority of that comes from his red flag silly at Silverstone last year, because you crashed going into the pit lane under red flag, you doofus.
That was 4 points. The first ever Formula One 4 penalty pointer.
Is Haas's reserve driver, by the way?
Jack Doohan.
Oh, I hope it ain't at Suzuka, man. I'm going to sail off into Tiger 2. We're never going to see him again.
It's going to be Jack Doohan. Jack Doohan is now, and honestly, my heart goes out to him because, my God, I don't know if anybody saw Drive to Survive, because season 8 came out last week, but there was a clip that went viral where Jack Doohan is basically having to have armed security around him during Miami because he got death threats via email for his poor start to F1. This sport is fucking crazy, and I don't mean that in a good way. Like, I get it. Doohan was poor when he was at Alpine, right? But can we not please threaten people's livelihoods over sport? Please and thank you.
Dumb as hell.
Jesus fucking Christ.
This is what we hope for, but like you said before, it's the footballification of Formula One. And it means a lot to some people, and for some people it means way, way, way too much. But that's Haas.
We'll also say with Haas.
Haas looks good.
I will say this. I feel like it's between them and Alpine as best of the rest. I think those are the two teams that are going to be vying for that all-important, not top 4 in the constructors.
Because you think, coming out of last year, that it would be Atlassian Williams F1 team. They've still got Alex Albon, and they've still got Carlos Sainz. They still have Mercedes AMG power units, which have been purported to be the very best. I mean, they're working benefits for Alpine. Certainly they'll do the same for Williams. But Dre, it hasn't always been straightforward. And I'm sad to say, you kind of called a little bit of this because I didn't want to believe it could all be. It's not hopeless. Nothing is as hopeless as Aston Martin, but it's not ideal.
Well, here's a story for you, all about Atlassian Williams F1 team and the man with the sexiest accent in Formula One, James Vowles, in year 4 of his project. Williams started out the year a hot mess. They basically missed the entire first closed shakedown at Catalonia back in January, and the alarm bells were ringing out of Grove on that one. And, well, it didn't go down well. And, well, they rolled up to Bahrain. And to Williams' credit, they were reliable.
Incredible.
They got a good amount of laps down. They were well over 600 laps logged. They were well in the midfield there for laps racked up. The car certainly was reliable, but it was slow. And we suspect we know the reason why. Now, James Vowles has been very coy about this, but to borrow a line from virtual Jeff Gordon from Gran Turismo 5, be careful, the car is heavy.
Digital Jeff Gordon can't hurt you. The digital Jeff Gordon.
Allegedly, they could be as much as 30 kilos overweight.
That's 66 pounds in old money. That's me as like a small child, like before I went to middle school.
I have a theory. I can't verify or prove this, but the way this has played out, I'm almost certain they failed a crash test going into this off season. I'm almost certain that they're never going to publicly reveal it, but I think they failed the crash test. Do you know why I say that? Because if you fail the crash test, you've got to strengthen the chassis. That adds weight.
And wouldn't be the first time.
And the rumor is that they didn't just fail one.
It's multiple.
And therein lies the problem. It's the same thing that completely derailed Alpine in 2024, where these cars are hard to get down to this minimum weight because they are smaller than the ground effect cars, but the power units are heavier because they've got bigger batteries now. You've got bigger MGUK to counteract the loss of the H in the turbo. What you've got now is you will take risks and you will push the front of the car to the limit, because the higher you can get that nose, the more shapely you can get the nose of the car. That is practically the rock upon which you build your church on a flat-floored Formula One car. If you fall on the wrong side of that risk, well, you can't compete if you fail the crash test. By rumors, they could be as much as 30 kilos over. That's a second
30 kilos,
on
and
its own.
you're not.
Yeah.
You will not cut that out by just cutting out the carbohydrates. Formula One cars are not any one of us 3 podcasters. I'll say this. Driver lineup's still solid.
Damn solid.
And towards the end of last season, we started to see the real Carlos Sainz Jr., because it seemed at times for the first half of 2025 that some imposter was dressing up as him and getting into that second Williams seat. Maybe it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't what you expect from a guy you just brought in for Ferrari when he could have gone to many other teams, and he went to Williams.
Yeah, like it's. I said it before. If you put Albon's first half and Carlos Sainz's second half together, you've got a 150-point driver there. Quite frankly, it was the shades of both very, very good Williams drivers trying to put a full season together and not quite managing it, but the potential was scary as to what they could do. Like the first half of last year, they were tracking like a team that could genuinely rack up top 5s. Like Albon had 5 of them over the course of the year, and Sainz had 2 podium finishes, and they were not major shenanigan fests. Like Baku was a very quiet third for Carlos Sainz, and then he did it again in Qatar off the back of the strategy mess that was McLaren. Like, this is a team that last year was trending in the right direction to go, hang on, they could be threatening for podiums. This was meant to be the year they were threatening for podiums this year on a regular basis.
Well, the problem is,
now we're talking about how far back down the order they've slipped down.
The problem becomes you have a brand new car here. And what they were able to do last year was incredible, and that they basically just put their 2024 car back in the microwave, sprinkled some of that seasoning you see in an ad on Instagram on top of it, and it was better. And them having perhaps a slower car that they understood better helped them punch up at the teams like Red Bull, like the high tier teams in the sport that they were able to just leapfrog on a race by race basis. Now everything resets. And lest we forget, this is a team that was still drawing up their cars on grid paper 4 years ago. Not drawing up the concept like Adrian Newey does on his precious AMR 26. The actual layout of the car was being done on grid paper.
They were doing things a lot the old-fashioned way, and they're still trying to get
They were still
catching up to like modern.
They were still on the systems that
titanium gearboxes.
They were still on the systems that BMW funded them. They haven't supplied engines to this team in 21 years.
Damn, that's crazy.
I do wonder how long that excuse is going. I'm not saying it's an excuse, because Vowles is trying to do this the hard way, and I respect him greatly for doing so. He's been very open from day one, because for those who don't know, he walked into that Williams team back in 2023 and basically said, I've come from a championship team. This is what that championship team is playing with. This is where you guys are at, and he is doing this the old-fashioned way. He's tearing out the old infrastructure at Grove and rebuilding it to modernize it from the ground up. They had to beg and plead for a rule change in the cost cap so they could actually get Grove rejuvenated to the tune of like 52 million quid to get it going again. I rate James for doing this the hard way. Yeah, because he's doing it so that Williams can be successful in the long term rather than now. The problem is, this is year 4 of a 5-year plan where he said that Williams was going to be challenging for race wins at the end of that 5-year plan. And we all know what happens to team principals who lay out ambitious 5-year plans and it don't work out.
Well, and here's the thing, is at some point when you're ripping out that infrastructure, you have to swallow some poison. This feels like a delayed reaction to that. This is the first total reset a Williams has had since the 2022 ground effect cars, for obvious reasons. And at the first hurdle, somewhere in the structuring of this car, they made a big mistake. This could still be a very, very good car. We know the Alpine in 2024 was actually a pretty good car. It just had a horrible amount of weight in exactly the wrong place to make lap time, because that weight costs you a second a lap. It kills your tires. You can't balance the car. And it tends to overstress certain components as well. It hurts you everywhere.
Yeah. Vowles, because it's not the first time he had this problem. He had the problem in 2024 as well. And when he did, he admitted to an old colleague of mine, Jake Boxall-Legg at Also Sport, that they were 15 kilos over, and that was costing them 0.45 of a second. So double the numbers. If it's 30 kilos, you're looking at 0.9 of a second. That's a significant amount of time to be losing.
I don't think James Vowles has to fear his job. I don't think he has to fear his job if it's a slow start to this season. I think this is still salvageable. They've got the talent and people to do it. The question is he going to see out the end of this rebuild? Because somebody's going to have to rebuild this team's infrastructure.
My biggest question with Williams is, what are you past the summer break? If the rumor is true,
that's a fact.
If you're 30 kilos overweight, you're going to take that pain early on. There's nothing you can really do about it until you can get the new tubs built up. What are you once you fix that?
There is no Ozempic for carbon fiber.
No. You can hit a wall.
That is a new sentence we just invented on Motorsport 101. That's not part of the plan. Well, that's the midfield contenders, and now it's time to talk about the teams that you expect to be fighting up front for wins,
the Big Four,
potentially even championships. But to do that, we got to start at Scuderia Ferrari.
It's that time of the year.
It's time to talk about Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton together at Ferrari for their second season together. And coming out of testing, they're doing things that are starting to get people to believe again.
Did you know that Ferrari has won the championship every year they've ever led preseason testing?
Fuck off.
No, they haven't. However, you'd rather take a great test than a bad test, and it looked like a really good test. We know what Ferrari were last year. They were 10 putrid, 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. And that is the Scuderia we're talking about, the team that prides itself on winning but hasn't in quite a while. They show up with a car.
The Dallas Cowboys of Formula One.
The Dallas Cowboys of Formula One. Well, the Dallas Cowboys had a hell of an offseason because they've come up with a car that is very neat. Incidentally, cribs a lot of its same ideas that it debuted off of the car that we think might be the one to beat this year, but has some of its own.
You know what they cribbed one idea off of? They cribbed one idea from the rotisserie chicken oven at your local
that I've never
supermarket
seen on a
with
race
the rear
car.
wing that spins around.
They have a rear wing, a DRS, which activates from the end plates instead of a center pylon, and it spins backwards about 220 degrees. It's sick as fuck.
Everybody was in shock. Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that Sam Collins briefly went viral because of how loud and long the Ferrari startup procedure was. It was a clip straight out of The Office, basically, which was hilarious.
We basically said, like, these cars shouldn't take so long to rev up. Revs up for several seconds.
Now, this requires context. Now, we lost the MGUH this year. That is the motor generator that hangs off the turbo. Sometimes it was right off the turbo. Sometimes it was in the middle. If you are Mercedes and Honda and you just design your turbos like you're on crack. Hey, it worked. They split every championship between them under the old regs.
And allegedly, the smaller turbo on these Ferraris has led to them flying off the line in practice starts. There was a lot of concern about what the startup procedure with these new cars. Most of those fears have been alleviated by the time we got to the end of testing, and Ferrari was flying out of the
because there is no MGUH to spool the turbo for you. You got to do it the old-fashioned way. Press the throttle, open a good book, and wait for it to spool, the 1986 BMW method. Some of these cars spool up fast, the Ferrari. Other ones do not, like the Audi, which takes like 7 seconds to get its turbo spooled. It seems like a genuine feather in Ferrari's cap that they can get their engine off the line quicker than everyone else. And they showed up with a number of things on the back of the car that, because of the way they've swept their drive shafts back and the way the legality boxes work on the gearbox, they have aero elements sitting downstream of the exhaust, and no one can copy them.
It's
very cool.
It's pretty cool. Ferrari have been genuinely quite ingenious in this off-season. Lewis Hamilton seems happier. He spoke openly that he's had a much more open hand on the development of this car. And I mean, the guy seems rejuvenated. I mean, this is his 20th season in Formula One, which is a wild thing to even say out loud. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not buying into that because he said he was built different this time last year, and we all know how well that turned out for him.
Not great.
But he seems happier going into this season. Charles Leclerc very quietly has gone about his business, besides getting married. Congratulations to
drive
Charles.
Off to your wedding in a Ferrari 250 Testarossa. Baller.
That man has got
beyond compare.
Happy for him. He's done a bit of growing up.
Man's got JK levels of Riz. It's like the Love's Philosophy video all over again, but in 2026. It's swagging. But yeah, Charles has very quietly gone about his business. And everything in the Ferrari camp seems bright and positive, which is normally
normally to believe again.
Normally that is.
Do you feel the passion?
That is the Dallas Cowboys starting off hot on the road and then just getting absolutely fucking fried at home.
Okay, I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say this on this podcast.
Go on.
I made a promise to brother Ryan that if Ferrari won the opener in Australia, I'm bringing back the church.
Yeah, it's you can do that. That is on you.
The red lean is sitting in the cupboard, just waiting to be cracked open.
Sipping.
We got the fruit punch. We got the syrup. Hook it into the veins. Do you start to believe again? Notice how
No.
we didn't talk about any of like the fast times and testing because we know
Fast times are a waste of time because we don't know fuel loads we don't know. Well, we know that Charles was pushing because the car looked like a bastard to drive at the limit.
But he did a C4 glory run at the end of the test, and we don't normally run the C4 compound in Bahrain, so it's completely unrepresentative because Bahrain's been a C1 to 3 track
tire
for years. It's a tire shredder. It always has been. So, like, running a couple of C4 glory runs was kind of redundant, but it got people talking, and that's what Ferrari's done all off season. The question is this actually a contender? McLaren thinks they are. It's an interesting one. Other teams have gone, well, we think they're right up there on longer runs. We'll have to wait and see. Again, I've said that a lot in this episode already.
I don't think they suck.
People believe in Ferrari.
I don't think they suck this year, because last year, preseason happens, and they kind of look like they sucked, and as it turns out, that was probably underselling how poor their offseason was last year.
It would be a shock if they were as bad as they were last year.
I would be shocked by that. What I will say is having a smaller turbo would concern me because what you're getting off the line is great. What happens when you're then racing and everyone else has more boost than you? We'll have to wait and see.
Good question.
I do think
we'll find out in Australia.
I do think Ferrari have a decent car. I don't think they'll go winless on the year. Would be my minimum prediction. I think they'll notch a couple, but they're Ferrari, and even they could get Charles Leclerc could fucking nail on like 8 race wins in a row to start the year, and I'm still just waiting for the fall.
Next up, Red Bull. Third in the constructors last year. It's a brand new era at Red Bull Racing. Max Verstappen, who now runs the number 3 as opposed to the 33 he used to have.
He's doing it for Dale.
He's doing it for Dale and the late Daniel Ricciardo, because apparently 3 was the number he always wanted when he joined Formula 1, but Daniel already had the 3 when he...
There's another thing in there as well, Dre. Like, you see inside the 3 is that there's an upside-down 1 in his 3 font.
I did spot that.
That is, by the way. And just to clarify, cheeky. Daniel Ricciardo is still alive and well and living his best life as just a Ford racing ambassador. It's just like, hi, I'm Daniel Ricciardo. I'm out here telling you to buy a new Ford F-150 Raptor.
And as for Dale, well, he's 1 lap ahead. But Red Bull, weirdly enough, probably the most changed team out of everything here, top to bottom, including from teams that weren't here last year.
Christian Horner is gone. We all knew he was unceremoniously fired from Red Bull Racing. If you want some more insight on that, again, Drive to Survive covered that very well in season 8 about how pissed off he was that he had his job suddenly yanked out from underneath him, and an actually quite wholesome exchange with Toto Wolff on the way out via text message.
That was the last thing I was expecting.
Yeah, he basically said that, you know, Toto sent him a text saying, you were my greatest rival, thanks for all the battles on track, etc., etc. And then Christian said, thank you, it was a great battle doing battle with you, P.S. you need a haircut.
It is literally, it is Mark Hamill's Joker without Batman, crime has no punchline. That's what that is.
Precisely.
There's no Christian Horner. There's no Helmut
Rest
Marko.
in piss, Bozo. Get the fuck out of this.
Is now
the fuck out of this house.
Team principal. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. What Cam Buckley said. No Horner. No Marko. Lauren Mekies is running the team. It's Ford Red Bull powertrains, and it's Isaac Hadger in the second seat.
Not only that as well,
because old habits die hard.
As mentioned, Craig Skinner. This is his last Red Bull. A exceptionally successful 5-year run as chief designer at Red Bull.
And a day one with Red Bull. He was there from the very start.
He worked his way up. He was chief aerodynamicist for a while. They made him chief designer in 2021. I would say it went pretty well. This is his last throw of the dice, and I find it very funny that Red Bull and Aston Martin, on 2 opposite ends of every concept you could have on these cars, have produced the 2 probably most unique cars on the grid, and at the same time, they look like had nothing to do with one another. I find that very funny.
It's very interesting. As Cam mentioned before, Ford are a lot more directly involved in this project than we thought they were going to be. We joked.
And it's not as much of a shit show as everybody was saying it was going to be. So good job, everybody, for that wonderful prediction.
You know how wild it is that Christian Horner's leaving present might be a genuinely good, self-sufficient Red Bull powertrain on the way out?
Wild. Because
wild,
Ford initially were just doing stickers on the engine cover and electronic help. They now are doing parts in the ICE. They are doing work with the turbo. They are doing dyno help over in Michigan and alongside other partners from other sections of Ford's racing division. The best part out of all of this...
Jim Farley's talking shit to damn Taurus.
Jim Farley's talking shit to Ryan Eric King.
Oh yeah. It's like literally like the man behind me on the wall. It's like Ken Griffey Jr.'s last leaving present for the Mariners was making sure that Ichiro was going to be a permanent fixture for Seattle for the next decade as a parting gift. 99.9% first ballot Hall of Famer, as you do.
Yeah, but we can't have anyone in because then this guy would be the first one in. Anyway. Really good test.
Yeah, really good test.
A bit unreliable
at times,
but the car looks good out there. It's quick.
Oh my god.
Max was discovering new shit like using first gear in an F1 car as anything other than a launch gear. He looks like, as much as he's going to complain that he doesn't like these cars, the speed is almost certainly there.
She did not raise a quitter. She raised a complainer. He's going to do it. You're just going to hear about it.
Yeah,
and
this is still a top 3 driver of the sport.
Top 3, and he ain't 3. I mean, they looked really good on long runs. They also looked like they were carrying a bunch of extra fuel in the car deliberately once they brought their real car to the second test, much like they did back in 2022. I'm not going to say it's the best chassis. What I will say, it's the one that interests me the most when I look at it. There's a lot of really neat stuff on that car.
They like the power deployment,
because, and one of the elements that I think people will underestimate, and I know I did, is a new entity will sometimes take a look at something in a different way and completely flip the script. Remember, Mercedes split turbo, that was the rock upon which they built their church for 10 championships. That was designed by the Daimler truck division.
Wow.
That was something that was suggested by them. Like, they look really solid. And I think we'd know if the car had problems because Max Verstappen would not sugarcoat that. He didn't last year.
No.
Yeah.
And he likes the car.
No. Yeah, he doesn't like this style of driving, but he likes this car.
He called it Formula E on steroids, which did not go down well in Formula E.
Which is crazy. Yeah. And you know how we joke about all the time about how IndyCar are very insecure about their sport? You have never met Formula E.
Please like my dumb sport.
Jeff Dobbs was out here like, please come over and drive one of our cars. Please, Max. And like, I love that the one person in Formula E that was reasonable about this was one of the reasonable men in there, Stoffel Van Dorn, who was like, yeah, it'd be great over there as well, by the way. It's just like
Stoffel Van Dorn knows what he's talking about, man. Never got a fair shake in Formula One. We're all sad about it. Isaac Hadger. He's here now. Way ahead of schedule. What can he be where so many others, apart from most of Sergio Perez's tenure, had failed before?
Just don't be awful.
I was going to say, that's the main thing. Your aim should be get within 4/10 of Max. Like, we all know Max is a freak. You cannot replicate what he does in a car. He is the modern-day Marc Marquez. Don't replicate him. Focus on your own development. Get your head down. Don't make mistakes. Apparently, Hadjar loves the car. He could barely hide his excitement when he was talking about it during testing. Like, just the thing is, right, he's got the best chance of any rookie we've had for some time because it's a brand new car. Everybody's starting from zero with this. That normally would give you the best opportunity to actually be close. And I actually think, because it's a new era, I think Lauren Mekies will be a bit softer about this than Helmut Marko. That's my hope.
It appeared that he was going to be last year with Yuki anyway, and he got overruled. And then Marko was out of the seat. It was out of his control anyway. Because generally, I do think that Mekies has a much more calm head when it comes to decisions like this anyways. His much more methodical, like less volatile approach really helped Red Bull recover in the middle of last year because they got the car in order, they got the operational side in check, and they almost stole the championship right from under McLaren's nose. Almost.
It won't bring back the mistakes that were made in the Gasly and the Alpine and the back half of the Perez and the Lawson cup of coffee in the Sonoda year, but I want things to be better for future generations so that maybe this team could just be a little bit more normal for a change.
I just don't know how anyone's going to get on against Chief Sicko in car number 3. Because, I mean, we see...
You have to score points.
If he's not scoring points, he won't survive in that seat. That would be an unacceptable turn of events.
He needs to be making Q3s, and I'd say scoring on a regular basis. I'm talking like if it's top 8s, top 6s, that would be the sort of ballpark figure. If don't be 8 of 8 in that big group would be ideal. If you're not that, you're probably all right, quite frankly.
I mean, we saw during testing, I mean, Max is just kind of a racing Terminator. Whatever is required, he will just go and do it. If it means that he will have a better shot at winning. He was running that gearbox practically to the point that it was going to blow in half. The problem for Red Bull for me is what I think the car is legit. I look at it, I think it's a really interesting, well thought out car. What is the engine at 10/10? When all the sandbags are put away and everyone opens the faucet, what is the Red Bull powertrain?
Q3 is going to be fascinating in Australia.
What does everyone in Red Bull and Ferrari think? Mercedes is going to open the taps and turn this field upside down.
Yeah, the paddock is adamant on that, which is a neat transition into Mercedes' factory team, because they're next on our list. Same team as last year. George Russell, who was 4th in the standings last year. Kimi Antonelli in the number 12 car was 7th in points last year. These, for those who don't know, are the heavy pre-season favorites going into 2026. They have been from the start.
The mods.
You can now get George Russell at 2-1 to win the Drivers' Championship, which is very short. Like, he is favorite over Max Verstappen, and Charles Leclerc is 3rd favorite right now. So, I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a spoiler. They don't rate McLaren. Lando Norris is 9-1 to retain the title, which is wild to me.
I don't necessarily agree, but we'll get into that when we get to the papaya. Call a spade a spade. That car looked like butter out on track.
It looks quick. The only issue I've got with them is that I'm not sure how representative their running actually was. Part of me thinks Mercedes was gunning for lap times intentionally because they topped the timing sheets. I want to say 5 out of the 6 days across the 2 tests, which is suspicious in my opinion.
I would have said the opposite because they did that at the very end of the day. But what would they do before that? The old Mercedes adage, bolt on hards, go run laps. They put up a lot of laps. They did blow through a couple power units. That, for me, is the biggest question mark over Mercedes.
Full swap on the final day for Antonelli's
Not the only
car,
one either.
it was.
They burned through 2 full power units the second week. So that is a question mark hanging over them. But what they did bring late on in the test was, much like 2019, a more representative aero package of what they're actually going to bring. And that it looked like they could basically just do lap times at will. And that is concerning.
It was the fact that they did a 200-kilometer filming day back in December, and it basically ran like clockwork the whole way through. That's what scared people early on, that they basically had a car that was working out of the box.
Aston Martin still doesn't have that.
I'm a bit skeptical because, one, I'm not sure what their running represents. Two, I think a lot of people are just making assumptions that because they dominated the 2014 turbo hybrid V6 era, that they're just going to do it again here, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen again, especially because I remember the ground effect era and how bad their calibration was across that era, and then it cost them a boatload of wins.
To see it.
Well, and that was them trying a moonshot and making a very hardcore, all-in one direction gamble on how the ground effect cars were going to be run. And they got it in the exact wrong direction.
So it goes to show you that this team can get it wrong just as badly as they can get it right.
We also knew that from the first lap we saw the podless W13, though. Because the very first lap on track, that thing had problems, and it never got better.
This is going to be a very interesting test for George Russell, who, coming up through the ladder, title contender was his potential. This is what the machinations were. This is why people were wondering when the fuck he was going to go from Williams up to Mercedes. Now he's here. He's been like a pound for pound top 3 driver in the sport, but he's never been a title contender until now. Because he joined Mercedes just at that time where they had that big fall off, starting with the 2022 regulations. He's won multiple Grand Prix, as people expected would. Like, is it just catching people off guard? It's just like, oh yeah, now he is a title favorite, and this is what was always supposed to be.
Well, Mercedes were constantly up and down, and they never really got the ground effect cars figured out. They would be the first ones to tell you that. They spent a year and a half trying on a concept that was just incorrect in the real world. And when you spend that time trying to catch up, even when McLaren got everything wrong in 2022 and the start of 23, once their new regime took hold in the middle of 23 and we saw that incredible B-spec car in 23, that became the foundation that grew into a pair of constructors championships. That generation of car is gone. And really the biggest thing is the integration with the power unit. The car and the power unit are no longer a frozen known quantity like they were in the whole prior era. Only Mercedes knows how to get the best out of their power unit, because even though they're allowed to they have to give everyone the same maps. They know all the ins and outs of the physical element of the power unit. How to get the MGUK happy with the rear suspension, with the gearbox, with the tires. That's the secret sauce that they are not going to hand to McLaren until the morning of the race in Melbourne. To the point where McLaren and their customers were actually handed old specification power units for reliability purposes, and Mercedes themselves were plowing forward with new ones.
A little bit of gamesmanship from Mercedes there. Remember, by rule, they have to give them the same powers once we get to Australia. But, cheeky. It goes hand in hand with what they were. Yeah, and it goes hand in hand with Toto basically implying that one of their customers was becoming a pain in the arse, and I think they implied that they want to get rid of McLaren.
Never good to have the customer beating the factory now, is it?
No.
Isn't that right? Renault in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Isn't that right? Porsche in 1996 at Le Mans with a car they abandoned. Yeah, like Mercedes took so much benefit of the integration of the power unit the whole time that they were allowed to develop the car as a single unit under the prior regs. They got it wrong in 22. And the power unit was never a factor again because they were frozen other than reliability changes. I think that car
definitely
is really, really fucking good. I don't know if it'll last the race distance.
What I will say is prove it. Like, they've been the preseason darlings all the way through. I'm not buying it. I want to see what happens in Australia when they actually have to take the blinkers off and see what this thing can actually do. If it's there, George Russell will cakewalk this championship, because we saw last year he was exceptional. He was absolutely outstanding. He was bulletproof when it came to consistency. Got the wins. He had opportunities to win. When he had 2 chances to win a Grand Prix, he took both of them with both hands. He was as good as anyone in Formula One last year. He's ready to contend for a championship.
He's the equipment.
I'll say that. Just if the car is there, he will win it, and I stand by that. I'm curious to see what Kimi Antonelli can do in year 2, because
that's just what I was about to ask, because I know it's his second season. He had a year that looks like a lot of typical rookie years, a lot of peaks, a lot of valleys, but I can imagine Mercedes did not bring him in at 18 years old to be the direct replacement to Lewis Hamilton, just to be a number 2 guy.
Not yet, anyway. I think there was a couple of weekends last year where when Kimi was on it, he was better than George. Brazil probably being the big one last year. Vegas to a degree as well. He was exceptional on that hard side
that Vegas stint late on. But like in Brazil, he had to hold back Max Verstappen with flames shooting out of his eyes.
And he managed it. The guy can drive. And I think he will win at least one Grand Prix this year, if the car is there, because on his good days, he's as good, if not slightly better than George. It's just not weekend to weekend. He's still figuring this out. And I think he will. There's no doubt about it. The talent is more than there. Again, just got to get those rough patches out. Like I said this about a couple of guys in the field this year, where the speed is there. You can't teach that. Just mitigate the errors, and I think he'll be absolutely fine. It's going to be a 200 to 300 point score.
He's lacking an effort.
If that
he's lacking an effort, because he was taking all kinds of shapes around Bahrain during testing, and again, pretty much looked at one with the car. If Kimi can take that year 2, if he can take the Mick Schumacher year 2 step, oh mama.
Oh yeah. It's going to be fun to watch.
Trouble is that the Mick Schumacher year 2 step put him out of a job for reasons.
Well, the good news is now he can spend
at least
he can spend his days getting wrecked by Stingray Rob.
More on that in a future episode of Motorsport 101. But now it's time to talk about the McLaren MasterCard Formula One team.
MasterCard F1. Never thought you'd see that name back.
We are redeeming the name of MasterCard in Formula One with Oscar Piastri and the reigning, defending, undisputed Formula One World Drivers' Champion,
funded
Lando Norris. I mean,
it's great that they hired that Alex Palou pay driver to fund the team in the offseason as well.
So the ATMs are rolling and living large.
That was just for the IndyCar stuff. The Formula One side of the lawsuit, all tossed out. Personally, I think you shouldn't have to owe him a cent, but I'm just a big fan. But in all seriousness, no.
Yeah, this is...
You mentioned this with the odds, though. They feel disrespected as a reigning champion team.
It is wild. I mean, again, let's back this up for a second here. They are the reigning back-to-back Constructors champions. They had the second highest point count of any Formula One team ever in the Constructors Championship in 2025. They won 14 Grand Prix last year. And of course, by just 2 points, Lando Norris became a Formula One world champion for the first time. Congrats to him, by the way. Laureus nominated Breakthrough Athlete of the Year. He'll be competing against Luke Littler. Anyway, it's what a time to be alive. Anyway, what I'm getting at is it's Lando Norris now in the number 1 plate this year alongside Oscar Piastri, who was third. I think he was 14 points away at the end of last season. So Lando at the top, as close a drivers' championship pairing as we've seen in many a year. And welcome to the sequel of Papaya Rules, 2 Papaya 2 Rules, as RJ nicknames in the chat.
I think it was Cam.
That was me.
I didn't type that in.
Oh, it was you. Okay, fair enough. My bad. Now, this, as alluded to, Lando Norris is 9-1 to retain his championship this year. That feels really, really high. I think part of the problem is that McLaren have played down their own performance in testing quite a lot. They reckon they're third fastest behind Ferrari and Mercedes over long runs right now.
The biggest thing is they just don't look very good on the brakes. And Bahrain will do that to you because it has the worst braking zone in like all of motorsport. That turn 10 complex is a bitch.
Poor judgment.
And we saw a lot of people suffering poor judgment off into that turn. But it just doesn't have that ridiculous poise that the McLaren had, even when Red Bull was throwing hands with them in the second half of the year, that McLaren could always exhibit pretty much at will. And on long runs, they had some good days, they had some bad days, they had some days in the middle. I'm wondering if they're still figuring this car out.
That seems to be the impression that I get. I think that's the impression a couple
new
of
regulations, everyone's figuring out their cars.
Of course.
But even more so.
Of course. But yeah, the impression that I got reading other people's whose opinions I respect in this game, the overall impression I got was that McLaren is still figuring this out. They feel like they're third fastest right now, and that the general sentiment is that they're trying to play down expectations a little bit, which is always going to be a bit of a damp squib when you're the reigning Constructors champions. But Andrea Steller's a very honest guy, and I don't think he would try and pull the rug on people like that.
If it was Zach Brown, I'd be penciling them in for the biggest Constructors to win ever.
Exactly, but Steller's not a bullshitter. So, in my opinion,
they're better than they were, and then they were at the start of like 2023. Like that goes without saying.
It feels like they are like. It feels like the top four could end in any order.
Yes.
Which is a great thing to say going into new regulations, because in 2014, let me tell you, I think everyone kind of knew what was going to happen when we rocked up to Australia.
I was going to say, like, everybody has gassed everybody else up in that top four fight at some point during these two tests. Early on, everybody was talking about Red Bull. Then it became a matter of Ferrari's ingenious. Then it became, Mercedes are sandbagging. And by the end, it was, we think McLaren might still be up there. I don't think, the point I'm getting at here is I don't think anybody knows.
We're better off saying we don't know, because that might make for a more exciting season. I do think McLaren...
What we do know is that Lando and Oscar are good.
We do know that Lando and Oscar are good. That said...
Best driver lineup in F1.
They are the best duo in F1. They also both really exposed flaws in each other's game last year, which they then both took advantage of on each other. And just about threw the Drivers' Championship away, with a little bit of help from their trackside team.
And that might be part of the reason why
they're the very best two drivers, number one and number two. But what I'm saying is that they're quality enough. Like we could bank on that.
Basically, if anything, last year was a roller coaster in the good, the bad, and the ugly with both of their drivers at certain points. It took Lando Norris about half the season to figure out the MCL 39, but when he did figure it out, he got a hell of a lot quicker in the back end of the season. Piastri started the year hot, but once he got to the flyaways with low grip tracks, he really struggled. Went 2 months without a podium finish. The Piastri burgers were going stale back in the car.
Conspiracy was peddled by actual news stations at us on our socials.
Yeah, I had a guy from Channel 7 argue with me on Instagram that he thought there was a grand conspiracy against Oscar Piastri. The team was intentionally trying to screw him over because Lando's the number one driver.
Zach Brown definitely paid off Ollie Behrman to beat him in Mexico. That's definitely what happened. No, they both come out of a year where they fought for a championship. One of them narrowly won, one of them narrowly lost. And both of them have major elements of their game to up. The big question mark becomes, what has McLaren given them to work with? Because last year they did have a pretty crushingly dominant car for 2/3 of the year. And then Max Verstappen ripped their head off for the remaining third. And just shot every hole imaginable into McLaren and just came up short off of the things with which championships turn. The big question mark there becomes, McLaren, can you govern this team the way you did last year if you don't have that level of dominance? Because I don't think you can.
This is going to be a hard one to call, man. And like my big question marks is, 1, do McLaren know this car? 2, can they coexist? 3, I think they've actually got quite a nice secret weapon this year, and that's Will Coulton.
Great pickup.
They've brought that is an outstanding pickup, another Red Bull day oneer. I had a good friend of mine who worked at Red Bull tell me that he is one of the real smart, good dudes in F1, and he was Red Bull's head of strategy. He's now going to be McLaren's sporting director starting this season. Their biggest issue for me has been pit wall strategy. It doesn't get much better than him, quite frankly. So that is a huge upgrade for maybe McLaren's biggest weakness patched.
Potentially, but will he be allowed to work? Because we know at Red Bull, whatever was necessary to win that race, they would do, and they would do at the cost of pissing off everyone else anywhere in the world. And what does Zach Brown hate more than anything else, besides Alex Palou? Pissing off his fans.
Losing to Red Bull. They don't want to lose. Like they hate Red Bull. That's more than obvious. And the next generation of that rivalry will continue here. It's going to be fascinating to watch. Let's do some end of podcast predictions here. First of all, I've not set an over-under to make this a bit more interesting. How many drivers will win a race this season?
I will go with 7.
I'm going to say 6.
Sure.
Don't you say it. Don't you say it.
What? What did...
You know.
Cam, now I get it.
Cam, give us a number. Give us a number.
6, 7. It's so fucking funny. Let me actually count this year.
Max,
I'm thinking
both
McLarens.
Both McLarens.
George.
Both McLarens.
I think Kimi gets on the board.
Charles.
I think Charles gets on the board.
And I think
I think
6.
Ferraris get on the board.
I would hope for Lewis Hamilton's sake he does this year.
Oh boy.
Because the taste of last year is still not out of my mouth. Yeah, I'll go with 6.
Interesting. We're going to bring in Tony Smith. This one's for you.
Oh, no.
Marty. I heard your request last week on the Discord server, which if you want to join, please just reach out and ask. And who knows, if I'm feeling generous, I might give you a Discord spot. What did he call it last week? It was I
think he called it the shit-tacular in like his delirious stupor. But this is basically who is going to finish at the bottom of the Drivers' Championship. And my answer is going to be whichever is the driver that comes in as a replacement for one of the 20 full-time regulars. Because I don't feel confident in picking any one of the 20 full-timers to 22 in this case.
I'm
going to go with
Sergio Perez.
Stroll.
I'm going to go Valtteri Bottas.
I think it will be
a really fading Cadillac.
I'm a bit more forgiving towards Checo because I think Red Bull was a big part of his problem when he was in that setup. I still think there's some speed there with Checo. I have more concern about Valtteri Bottas and his last year in F1.
Fine. Give me Jack Doohan finishing like 15th if he has to replace all of them.
Jack Doohan flying over the fucking crossover at Suzuka as a one race stand.
Please, no. Luke Browning almost did that. Just a couple weeks ago.
That. You go off at 130R. It is never ever small.
At least it didn't clear the fence.
Luke Browning, by the way, not for the faint of heart if you search that one up if you missed it. But Luke Browning said the hands device saved his life. And I don't blame him given how nasty that one was. Jesus Christ.
Super Formula starts next month.
Who wins the best of the rest award? Who finishes 5th in the World Constructors' Championship?
Who gets to qualify for the Europa League of Formula One?
I will hand it to the gritty Haas. Because I think versus Alpine, I think they have 2 drivers who can consistently score, and I think Alpine has 1.
I agree with Cam. I'm going to say Haas on this one.
Wow. This thing is Aston has too deep a hole to dig out of.
No, dig up, stupid.
And I know Williams will get better. I know both these teams will get better. Will they get better in time to challenge for 5th? With actually ruling it out completely. Williams, I think they salvage top 8, maybe top 6. I don't think they get 5th. This is going to be once again on M101 this year. We are all going into a hive mind. Give me Haas. Fine.
Wow, unanimous. Haas. Wow.
We will all be wrong, or we will all be right. My big thing. I think Gasly can do it. I think he needs help.
Sure.
I think he needs help, but I'm not prepared to say that Franco's going to give him that help.
That's exactly was my logic.
I'm not giving Flavio Briatore his flowers. Nah, get the fuck out of here. Constructors Championship.
McLaren, they're still the only team for me who's elite with 2 proven drivers.
Mercedes. I think Kimi takes the step this year. I think George will be real good.
More than a valid shout.
I think for that reason, I gotta go with Mercedes. I just don't trust Ferrari enough yet.
I need Kimi to prove it, but yeah. I am okay with dying on the McLaren hill if I'm wrong on this one, but McLaren have proved it to me. I don't need to see any more from them. I need to see it out of Kimi. I know Piastri and Norris are 300 point scorers. I'm not convinced on that with Kimi. I need to see it. If he does, fair enough. I'll happily be wrong on that one. The big one, your 2026 F1 Drivers' Champion is
Russell.
You want to say Max, don't you, Cam?
I kind of do, but I don't trust Red Bull's power unit. But also, he...
Take him. Take it.
Just to be different, because you're going to go Russell, too. I've read your blog.
Boston.
Motorsport101.com for all podcasts and written material.
I have it open here as extra material to draw
guides to the 2021 Formula One season. 2026 Formula One season.
I don't fucking know.
You know what? You'll feel better backing Max and losing. Take Max.
That's my attitude. I'm staring at the white bull right now. Your opponents cannot pass you without your consent. That's what that car represents there.
It's understandable. Take it. You know you want it.
Give me the best damn racing driver in the world. That is an Alex Palou. Shit, toss a coin with those two for Athlete of the Year.
Yeah, thanks a bunch last year for that, by the way, you fuckers.
My brain says George Russell, my heart says Max. I'm going to go with the heart on this one, and then I'm going to text her right now.
Fair enough. I will also take George Russell because, like I said, I think as a team, I think McLaren might end up coming through with their 2 elite driver pairings. I also think that if it comes down to it, if Mercedes, I'm hedging my bets a little bit here, but if Mercedes are the dominant force that a lot of people think they might be, I'm going to take George Russell for the driver's title. I'm not going to lie to you. I was this close to taking Charles Leclerc. Of course you were.
We see your shirt.
I mean, come on, guys. I mean,
the red lean never comes through.
It's there. It's staring at me. That'll do it for our season preview season. We've already kind of gotten underway for real. If you watch our MotoGP episode from earlier this week, do you say if you haven't already, the real action gets underway this weekend at Albert Park in Melbourne, Australia. The Australian Grand Prix this weekend. We'll be back to review that next week alongside a double dip on IndyCar from Alex Palou's dominant victory in St. Petersburg and whatever happens in one half of the Desert Double as IndyCar returns to Phoenix. That'll be an interesting watch indeed as they play second fiddle to the O'Reilly series.
Now featuring YouTubers.
Now featuring YouTubers, apparently, as you do. We'll talk about that on next week's show. Until then, enjoy the action. I've been Dre Harrison. They've been Cam Buckley and RJ O'Connell. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and we'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.
Later, y'all.
Maybe they do call it the Honda Motor Company for nothing.